The purpose of this short PowerPoint is to provide more information about how to write measurable objectives using Bloom's taxonomy and the Ohio Learning Standards. For this assignment, the directions are as follows. You were told to select a text or a content area from any grade level that you anticipate teaching, and it can be from your content area. So it doesn't have to be English language arts. You can select music, math, science, or social studies. I've noted here that you should go to the Ohio Learning Standards and select a standard or two from that grade level. Review the levels of Bloom's taxonomy and then write 3 measurable objectives that align to the standards you've selected. Each objective should be from a different level on Bloom's taxonomy. Try and write at least one objective from one of the top 3 levels. This diagram should look familiar to you as we used it as a jump-off point for our discussion of how to write measurable learning objectives. The focus for this assignment is the top 3 bullet points on this diagram. The curriculum here is the text or the content area that you have selected. Then what I'm encouraging you to do is to go to the learning standards that are that align to the grade level and the content area for what you've selected. Then what you need to do is work on the measurable objectives, and that's where we connect to the diagram for Bloom's taxonomy and going from lower levels of learning to higher levels of learning. So after you've selected your text or the content area, go to the Ohio standards for that content. So here I have the English language arts ones. You can click on this, or you can go into week 2 on our Blackboard site, and there'll be the links to the other learning standards. What you need to do is peruse the standards at the grade level for the text or the content and select 1 or 2 that align to directionally what you hope to accomplish by teaching that text. After you've selected your text or your content and you've found standards that align to what it is that you intend to teach, then you need to write some objectives that are measurable. And as a reminder, what I mean by that is sometimes the standards are written in a format that is hard for you to actually measure it or assess it in order to gauge whether your students have gained mastery or proficiency of the content that you're intending for them to learn. So you need to write out some objectives that you will use then for your setting up your instruction and also for your assessment component. What I'm asking you to do as you look at these 6 different categories of levels of learning, I want you to write 3 different objectives for the standards that you've selected. And I want at least one of them to come from the top half, because those are the areas that really stretch your students because they're deeper or higher levels of learning. So at least one of them has to come from the top 3 categories. The other 2 that you are assigned can come from the bottom. If you want to stretch yourself and see how many of them you can get from the top, that's great also. Usually when we're providing a lesson, we have them from a variety of levels of learning because sometimes we need to just learn the material. We need to be able to, in a sense, memorize it or gain a great understanding of the content before we can apply it or analyze it and create, etc. So make sure that 1 comes from the top half, the other 2 can come from anywhere within this diagram. So this is the one that we used in class. I explained to you if you give a cat a cupcake book, I showed it to you, read a couple of pages. If you Google, if you give a cat a cupcake, read along, you'll find a couple of different versions of that if you want to familiarize yourself again with that text. But what I did, I followed the pattern that I'm expecting of you. I went to the English Language Arts Learning Standards for Ohio, which the link is there. And then I located two different standards. Well, it's actually one major standard and two breakdowns of it. And it was reading standards for literature for grade 1 within key ideas and detail. And you see the two that I've selected there. Ask and answer questions about key details in the text, and then analyze the text development, demonstrating an understanding and being able to retell the story, including details about the story. So that's what my students should be able to master, but it's hard to measure that the way that it's written. So I wrote out 3 different objectives that I can actually use in designing my assessments. I chose from the remembering category, which if you remember was the very baseline of Bloom's taxonomy. And I suggest here that students will be able to describe some of the major events in the story. Then I select from the next level up, which is not just remembering, but understanding the concepts. So I'm saying that students should be able to summarize how one action leads to another action in the story, that whole concept of cause and effect. And then I jump up to the next category, which is applying. And I ask students they should be able to construct a new if and then for the cat. Now, what I have neglected to do here is choose from the top 3 categories, which I asked you to do. But make sure that you do that as you design your learning objectives. As you're working on this assignment, make sure that you access the template that has been provided for you for this assignment. You can find it under Weekly Plans, Section 1, the Words section, Week 2, and then if you scroll down towards the bottom of the resources that are noted for you there, you'll see a template, Writing Objectives. And if you'll notice, there is an example for you on the template of how I want you to lay out the information with where you found the standard. Make sure that you tell me what section it was in. The example says key ideas and details, and the grade level that you're focused on. So put grade 3 or grade 5 or whatever it is that you're putting that you're focusing in on. And then also write the actual number for the standard and then write it out. Now, if you're using social studies or science, you'll want to give me sufficient information so I know where I can find it. Give some description as to the thread that it's under or the theme that's noted there or whatever the case may be. And then right under where it says content of lesson, make sure you give me the name of the text if you're using a book, or the content area, what the focus of the content is. And then write your 3 objectives below. Make sure you note the level of Bloom's taxonomy that you're aiming for with the particular standard, or excuse me, objective as you have it written there. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to send me an email. I'm hoping that this has provided some clarity, so doing this assignment will not be quite as difficult. There is an assignment Dropbox. Make sure that you upload this, and if you could please upload a Word version rather than a PDF, it makes it far easier for me to leave you comments within your submission. Thanks so much.